Hey guys, I got a brand new video for you today, and today we're looking at my new workstation. We're going to build this thing, and I decided to go with an AMD Ryzen CPU instead of Intel. All my past systems have been Intel, except for way back in 2011 when I had the Phenom 6-core 1100T or something like that. It was like the black edition. You could overclock the crap out of it, but that was back when AMD was kind of competitive with Intel, and ever since then until now, they haven't really been competitive, in my opinion, being able to keep up. But now we finally have something that competes with Intel, and this CPU is the 1700X, and if I overclock it, I should be able to get similar performance to the really expensive 6900K from Intel, which is the 8-core 16-thread. This is an 8-core 16-thread. My old system, I didn't really do a build log on it. This was kind of my update to my old system, and it had a 7700K in it, and I just found that the quad-core really wasn't all that powerful for like exporting crazy 4K video and trying to do other things. If it was just exporting, it was fine. And I think that this will do a lot better job. I did part that system out. That's why I was able to do this system. So some of the stuff we have here is from my old computer. And obviously the video card, CPU, motherboard, case, cooler, and stuff like that is all new. I did some B-roll of my old system since I never really made a video on it. RIP, old system, roll the footage. Alright, so I do have a build log series that I filmed, but never really edited and put up. If you want to see that, maybe I'll put it on Patreon or something like that. But I did an entire custom water cooling loop for that system. I'm not doing it for this system. This system I'm going with just an all-in-one cooler and fans. I'm not going to go with custom water cooling, mainly because if something happens, it's literally impossible to try and troubleshoot with hardline tubing hooked up everywhere, and it's just a nuisance, and I think that this is going to be the better way to go. I usually have headphones on, I don't hear the noise, and I don't think this is going to be crazy loud anyway. I've got nice quiet fans, and yeah. So let's get into the parts and why I chose what I chose. Like I said before, I got the Ryzen 1700X, 8-core 16 threads, going to try and overclock it to 4 gigahertz, fingers crossed, I should be able to make that happen. And then I went with the Gigabyte AX370 gaming K5 motherboard, and the main reason why I went with that board is because it has a lot of features, and it's the only board that doesn't have a million weird color schemes, and it's just matte black, and that's exactly what I want, because I just want a simple, clean, blacked out system. And video card, I just went all out. I bought the 1080 Ti. I don't do a lot of gaming, and most of you are going to be like, why the heck would you spend so much money on a video card if you don't game? I feel like coming from a 980 Ti, the 1080 really wasn't that much of an update, so going to the 1080 Ti is probably a better choice. It's going to give me a bit more longer life out of it because it's literally the best you can get right now. And I went with the Founders Edition card because, again, I don't want something that's like crazy flashy with weird color schemes, and a lot of those cards, you know, they probably run a lot better. They're clocked higher right out of the box because they have bigger coolers on them. But I just love the Founders Edition. I don't know what there is about it, but I just love the design of it, and I think it's going to look nice in this case. Speaking of the case, I got the Fantex P400. This is the one with the tempered glass side panel. It's gray, and that kind of matches my color scheme in my room because I have gray desks and, you know, white and stuff like that. Once I get it set up, I'll show you my setup and my desk. Next, we have the RM1000 Corsair power supply. It's a 1,000-watt power supply. It's the one that was in my old system. Keeping that because it's still good. There's no reason to get rid of it. I got 3 Samsung Evo SSDs. I got the 950 Pro as my operating system drive. I know that the newer 960 Pros and 960 Evos are out and they're a little bit faster, but I'm not going to spend the money on that because the 950 Pro is still a really fast M.2 drive, and there's no need to upgrade that. I have all my Fractal fans here. I'm going to reuse those because they're nice. And speaking of Fractal, I went with a cooler that I've never used before. I normally use like the Corsair H100s or H100i and stuff like that. And my buddy system that I just built for him last week with the Ryzen 1700X actually, we put in a Corsair H60, which is just a single 120, I think, fan, rad, all-in-one cooler. That one out of the box fits the AM4 socket, And I don't really know if there's much of a difference between the AM3 Plus socket and the AM4 socket. When I was building it for him, it looked pretty much exactly the same, but I've heard hit or miss things online about how certain coolers won't actually work with it. You need a different bracket. But this Fractal Celsius S24 is just a, oh, there goes my RAM. This Fractal S24, you can fit two 120mm fans on it, and it looks really nice, and it says on the box that it's designed for Ryzen, so that's maybe another reason why I chose it. I don't know if I should go by the badging where it says made for Ryzen, because other things might work better. But the next thing is RAM. There's been a lot of issues with compatibility on Corsair RAM and stuff. I don't know if the BIOS updates have fixed that, but I decided to go with the G.Skill Titan Z RAM. This is the 3000 megahertz. Yeah, and it's 32 gigs. It's 2 sticks of 16, so if I want to upgrade this to 64 gigs of RAM in the future, I can do that. Anyway, that's basically it for the parts I'm using. I'm going to get into the build here, and I'll put it to some cool music because that's what I do on this channel. Once I'm finished, we'll come back. I'll do some B-roll of the finished system. And I did one benchmark before I dismantled my water cooling system, just exporting a video in Premiere, and I want to show how much faster this actually will be exporting a 4K video in Premiere with tons of LUTs and edits. It was actually a music video. So we'll come back and see what kind of performance gains we get, and yeah, let's build this baby. Alright, I'm going to stop the video here because things took kind of a turn. So I got Windows installed, everything's working good. I updated the BIOS, everything looked fine. I didn't try any overclocking or anything yet. Got Windows installed, got Premiere installed, and I started to do the benchmark that I did with the 7700K just so I could screen cap that and see if I got any performance. And it took like almost twice as long, almost 3 times as long. So I was like, what the heck is going on here? And I popped Task Manager open, and I noticed that only half of the cores were working, the other half weren't. And even those 4 cores were just kind of sitting there at like 5 to 8% while exporting a 4K video. And I'm like, this is weird, this isn't right. Went back into the BIOS, all the cores were enabled because you can block off half the cores. And I ran Geekbench after that, and I got like a terrible score. Man, what the heck is going on here? I ran Cinebench, I got like a 1200, which is extremely low for a 1700X. So I was like, all right, well, it's got to be either the CPU or the motherboard. So I went, returned it, and picked up this, and this is the MSI Gaming Pro Carbon X370 chipset. And again, the reason why I chose this board is because it's not as flashy, and it's very similar to the Gigabyte board, how it's just kind of matte black. Booted it up and still had the same problems. I had USB issues, like sometimes USB stuff wasn't working. And I was like, well, I guess it's the CPU. So I returned to CPU. We now have a good system. Roll the new B-roll. Alright guys, so this is kind of just my own personal benchmark. This is GH5 footage shot at 4K 60 FPS, slowed down to 24 FPS. Got lots of grading and stuff like that on an adjustment layer. So as you can tell, it's kind of laggy, and it's kind of what you'd expect when nothing's rendered. So what I'm going to do is export this video at 40 megabits, usually what I export my 4K videos at. And there's nothing wrong with the 7700K, it's a really fast CPU. You can see here it's running at 4.45 gigahertz. That's not overclocked, that's just turbo boost. And this video took around 23 minutes to export. I'm not going to run through the entire thing here. I'll just, that's just what I found on the export here. And we're hitting around 50 to 60% CPU usage. Alright, so running the exact same project with the 1700X. As you can see, we got 16 threads here, running at 3.85 gigahertz. That was my overclock I got to, and exporting at 40 megabits per second, same exact settings. You can see the times going up here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open a video off YouTube, and I'm going to set it to 4K. I'm going to let this video buffer for a second. I'm going to play this 4K video while exporting that 4K video file. And as you can see, it's up to 17 minutes. And that's exactly what it actually took to export this, if you want a spoiler alert. It took 17 minutes to export this video while running a 4K video. And then I decided to open up Steam and run Counter-Strike. I actually hadn't run Counter-Strike on this system yet, so it had to install some things. But I'll let that run while we're watching the 4K video and exporting this 4K video. Right now that Counter-Strike's loaded, we still have that 4K video playing in the background and exporting a 4K video. Just gonna play offline with some bots here. Everything's just kind of sped up so it doesn't take so long. Right here I went back to normal speed so you can see the frame rate. Wasn't crazy impressive the frame rate. I am running everything on the highest settings, but I got like around 30 frames per second or something. Going back here, so the 4K video running and the export. I did get this thing overclocked to 3.8 gigahertz. I took it up to 3.9, it was running, but it really wasn't all that stable. I guess I didn't really win the silicon lottery, especially didn't the first time. But at least all 8 cores, well, all 16 threads are firing now when I'm doing exports and benchmarks. I'm pulling a pretty good score in Geekbench now. My Cinebench score is closer to what everyone else is getting. And this thing has a lot of power now. Editing video, I've noticed that the export times are way faster. And you can tell from a benchmark, I can just do way more stuff. So that's the main reason why I upgraded. If you're thinking about doing a Ryzen system for editing video, I can highly recommend it. I don't know what happened with my CPU. Obviously it wasn't the motherboard, but I decided not to return the motherboard because I actually really like the BIOS on the MSI board better than the Gigabyte board. And I've actually never owned an MSI board. I've always owned Gigabyte and Asus boards, and I've had problems with them in the past, so I'm going to give MSI a run and see how they work. And yeah, all the parts that I used are linked in the description, so if you want to build something similar to my system, maybe you don't need as crazy of a video card, but it's 1080 Ti, why not? Anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice, and I'll see you in the next one.